Where'd it go?
Finally.
A simple way to instantly increase your employees' engagement. So we're laughing here because we've been trying to go live for the past 22 minutes, 26 minutes at this point. We've had a lot of technology issues. So we're happy to be here today. I'm going to share with you 3 things that you can do. So this is a 3-step process that's going to help boost employee engagement. So who I am, I'm Melissa. I am an executive coach and a management consultant. And what I do on a daily basis is work with people and leaders. So leaders just like yourself, I help them increase engagement and build high-performing team. So engagement is a really, really big part of what I do. And I work with the leaders and I also work with the people on the ground. So I do a lot of one-on-one with employees and team coaching for the purpose of increasing engagement. So I'm going to give you some insight into what I do, some behind the scenes, because that's what I'm about. I don't want to just tell you stories. I want to give you something that is useful, practical, so that you can walk away from today with new insights that you can put into practice and get return on your investment of time and energy and get better results. So Kelsey Ann is joining me today. Kelsey Ann is part of my team. Kelsey Ann, tell me a bit about you and your thoughts on engagement. As we get rolling here, we're just going to talk a little bit about engagement, and then I'm going to dive into sharing some really useful things.
For sure. So I am the marketing director here at In Charge Coaching, and but more like a partner. So we talk about feelings. We're very transparent here, and having been in the corporate world previous to this position, I can see how engagement is directly related to the interactions that you have with, management and the relationships that you form, and your feelings not only about yourself, but also about the management and, the organization as a whole. And I can see it now in other people and their businesses and the way that they're interacting with their companies and how they disengaged, and how COVID has changed, it flipped the world on its head. And engagement is a common theme, or disengagement is a common theme that workplaces are dealing with right now, big time.
Yeah. And so, let me add a little bit of dimension to what you just stated, Kelsey Ann. And, I'm a very rational thinker. I love stats and facts, and I like to understand things, and I like to know that there's evidence behind what I know. And so Gallup's State of the Global Workplace in 2022 showed us that about 21% of employees are engaged at work. So 21% of people worldwide are engaged at work. And, when you're looking at high performance, when you're looking at a high performing team, what we want to see is 70% of high engagement.
Mm-hmm.
So if what's typical is 21% and what we're aiming for is 70%, that's a really big gap. And so even if it seems okay, you have to look at how much engagement. So it's not a question of like yes or no, but it's how much engagement do we have?
Mm.
And from that, engagement is always moving. So it's always going up and down for every individual on your team. So it's not like lock it in, here we go. There is a gaining that engagement, and then there's a maintaining the engagement aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you haven't been thinking about engagement, this is kind of like your sign to be starting to think about engagement.
Mhm.
on an ongoing basis. That's something to keep your finger on the pulse of.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I do is I assess teams, and I assess organizations. And one of the measures that we have is the percentage of engagement. And that changes. It
Mhm.
goes up, it goes down based on what we're doing. The more intentional we can be about leadership and how we engage people, the more sense of control or more empowered we can be in maintaining that engagement and getting to a place of high performance
Mhm.
and maintaining that high performance.
Mhm.
So high performing teams don't just happen. They take intentional um, approaches to gain and maintain that engagement and to keep that alignment. What are your thoughts on that, Kelsey? And as I'm speaking it, and for everyone joining, so in just a minute, Kelsey, and for
Yeah.
everyone joining, please say hi. Let me know
Yes.
that you're here. Say hi, where you're joining from, and leave me a little note about your thoughts, feelings, perceptions, experiences around engagement or disengagement.
Yeah, no, I was just kind of thinking like the 21% versus the 70%. So if you have a team of 10 and only 2 people are engaged, when really you need 7 people engaged, like I then kind of flip automatically to like strategic goals. And I'm thinking 2 people are not achieving the strategic goals of that company, right? When you have 8 people quiet quitting or they're disengaged, whatever,
Yeah.
where the high performing team has 7 people being able to move those strategic goals forward. Like that's bananas to me.
Yeah. And some people aren't, it doesn't even mean that they're quite quitting. It could mean that they are showing up enough to get their paycheck, right? Or they could be just putting in the little extra. They're and engagement is our emotional commitment to the effort or our emotional commitment to work. So how do they feel about being here? And feelings about work has shifted tremendously during the pandemic. How we view work, what we think about work, what we want from work has
Yeah.
completely changed. So what hasn't changed is how we get engagement. So we need to approach engagement. So we're still using the same steps. We just have to approach it from a slightly different perspective. So are you ready to know about the 3 steps?
I am.
All right. Because let me tell you, I've been in the position, I have been the person who naturally did a lot of things right when it came to leadership and people. It was just natural. I just got it. So I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know the strategy behind the method, but I did a lot of things right. And yet it still felt like I had to push and pull and use a lot of effort to get people to do the things that they were supposed to do, or to go the extra mile, or to get them to do whatever.
Hmm.
So it took a lot of effort on my part. And sometimes it felt like I was swimming alone. It felt like I was a one-person army. Sometimes I felt like, oh my God, why am I the only person who cares? Why are they rushing out at 5 o'clock when we're in the middle of something big, a crisis, a campaign, a whatever? Like, why can't they just put in the little extra? Why am I the only one that cares?
Hmm.
And so, what I found out from unpacking all of that and learning about choice theory, engaging people's personal responsibility, emotional intelligence, facilitating trust, is I've learned a lot about how people feel, how they view what they want makes a big difference, and how aligned we are between what we're trying to achieve and how aligned they feel with that makes a big difference in how engaged they're going to be.
Hmm.
So what I want to talk about today is going to help you kind of ease out from that having to push and pull and feel like you're alone doing it, and be more aligned and feel like you have a team of people behind you that you can trust to show up, and to trust to show up and do the extra when the extra is needed.
Mhm.
And that really makes a big difference. So, what's the secret? What is the simple way to to increase engagement? Well, number one, when we are busy, especially in high stress times, we double down on the business agenda. Okay. Business is on fire. Things need to happen. We don't have enough time. So what we do is we tend to over focus on business and detach from our humanness. All right. I'm going to skip lunch. I'm going to skip breaks. Don't have time to stop and connect with this person. Or if I do connect, I show up to the team meeting. We don't have time for a team activity. We need to deal with this urgent thing.
Right.
So we just push aside all human connections. And I was definitely one of those people who was super focused on business. Business was my whole brain. And even now, if you ask me about me, what I will tell you is about the work that I do and the people that I help. And then they're like, hey, do you have a family? I'm like, oh, yes, I just spent 20 minutes talking about my business. Yes, I also have a family, and I also have personal things and personal dreams and personal wants and personal goals.
Right.
But my brain wants to go to business.
Mhm.
It's just how I'm wired. And this is a lot of, I'm not the only one here.
Mhm.
And especially in times of stress, when times of stress are here, as stress increases, what we see is things like empathy decrease.
Mhm.
What happens when we're all about business? As an employee, Kelsey Ann, if every day I was all about business, what would happen?
Um, I would feel like I used to feel in these big corporations, which was just an employee number. I didn't feel valued. I didn't feel like my work made a difference. I didn't feel acknowledged sometimes. I didn't feel accepted sometimes, right? There was clicks and whatnot. So yeah, and it's funny because I mean, oftentimes you hear, check your emotions at the door, especially in the workplace, right? So like to think about engagement as your emotional connection to your job and to your work, it's like, well, if I've left my emotions at the door, like I'm basically, a lot of cultures say, or you get that impression that you're supposed to leave emotions at the door. How are you going to connect? How are you going to engage with your work then if you're leaving it at the door?
Yeah.
That's just kind of what came up for me.
Yeah. And so now imagine if I wasn't sharing any pieces of myself. Like I'm just your boss. I'm just here to give you work. I'm just here to make sure you're doing your job. And I wasn't sharing about who I truly am.
Hmm.
The quirkiness, the weirdnesses, the bad mornings, insanity, whatever it is, right?
Right.
I'm a real person. But if
Right.
you weren't seeing that, if I wasn't sharing these pieces of myself with you, what would happen then?
When I think back to previous managers or bosses, they didn't share those pieces with me. Or if they did, it was just this teeny tiny piece.
Mm.
And it's made a big difference because I see you as a human, then my boss, not necessarily my boss, then a human. Right. And I mean, y- you pay me every week, you pay me. So it's like I am I don't even know what the word is. I I know I need to do the job to get my paycheck, but the way that you manage that as an employer is very different than what I've experienced previously. Definitely.
So, what was your perception of a manager that doesn't share with themselves? How did you as an employee think or feel about them?
I felt like, again, they didn't want to connect with me, that they were too busy. I didn't mean enough. That they couldn't take 5 minutes to be like, hey, how was your weekend? 5 minutes. And we've done that. We've been everything's on fire, but we take those 5 minutes to be like, hey, how are things, and connect. And then we're able to kind of, okay, now we got to refocus back into the fire on what we're going to get done. But that taking that 5 minutes, especially in those chaotic moments, it's like, okay, right, we're still humans. We're still, we make mistakes. There's going to be hiccups but we're going to get through them together, and just moving along. And that feels a lot better than previously, where it was just like, okay, there's an issue. You need to go deal with it. I don't care how you do it. Just get it done and leave me alone. Well, well, that feels really heavy.
Yeah. So, step number one, I'm just going to clarify. We talked about step number one,
Hmm.
highlighted the importance
Hmm.
of step number one, but I didn't tell you yet what step number one was. However, you may have guessed it. Step number one is put the business agenda aside long enough to have a human connection. And it is hard to do when things are on fire. However, when things are on fire, it might be the most critical time to have that human connection. So when things are on fire, the types of conversations that Kelsey Ann and I have, and I'm going to use us for example, is how are you doing right now? There's a lot of stress. What's going on for you? How are you balancing things? Are you and your kids okay right now? I know you're putting in extra hours. How's that working out? What do you need? I really appreciate the fact that you're showing up right now. You're doing the extra. What do you need? And because we have conversations like that, there's emotional support. There's real connections. There's a deeper sense of connection. And there's also putting in place things that allow Kelsey Ann to do the extra. For example, this might be a week of insanity. And because we've had these conversations, we might have set up meal prep for the week where we have meals that are being delivered to our door, done and ready to go, so that she can spend 2 extra hours working that day and not take lunch.
Hmm.
So these little things, these conversations really allow us to build our resilience, be high performing, and still feel very engaged and connected.
Definitely.
So I wanted to highlight the how, because there's a lot of resistance when we say put the agenda aside to have a human connection. It feels like you have to slow down when everything internally, like everything is telling you, speed up, 10x your speed.
Hmm.
But 10x your speed means you're going to be running over people and creating this disengagement and the demotivation. And guess what? As people are disengaging and demotivating, are you speeding up or slowing down?
You were slowing way down.
Exactly. Because you can only go fast and far if you're going together. So I slow down just a little bit to make sure that I have people on board so we can speed up together.
Hmm.
And it doesn't take a lot of time. We think it's going to take a long time. It's in those little moments,
Hmm.
right? Sometimes it's like between client meetings, where I will call Kelsey Ann from the car between point A and point B. And guys, this happens all the time. And I'm calling her for the sole purpose of like, tell me how your day's going.
Yep.
How do you feel? What do you think? Are there any challenges right now?
Mm-hmm.
And the challenges aren't just like, oh, I'm blocked in this area. It can be like, oh, I'm having a really hard time focusing on this right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. What's going on?
Yeah.
And we can unpack that. And I can do a small coaching session between A and B.
Mm-hmm.
And that 10 minutes will have made a big difference
Definitely.
in Kelsey-Ann's engagement and performance. And I was driving anyway. So it's not like I could have done anything else.
Right.
So it was a really good investment of time for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I stacked my time.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to showcase that it is possible to do these things and weave it in to your day. So number one, put the business agenda aside just long enough to have a human connection. Okay, ready for number two?
I am.
Number two, it's about what they want. Okay, one of the biggest fears that we have is asking people, what do you want? And I know you're hearing this, you're like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, no, I'm not really afraid of asking that. But when's the last time you've been asking people, really asking them, not just surface level, but really asking someone, what do you want? And then after they tell you, asking them again, what do you really want here? Because most times when we start the conversation, we 2 minutes into it get this really overwhelming urge to tell people our beautiful, fantastic advice. We already know what they want. We already know the problem. We already know what they need, and we already set up and to give them the advice. The problem is we have a lot of biases, and we all have them. If you have a brain, you have bias. So don't kid yourself. We have a bias telling us we know what people want. We have a bias telling us we know why people are behaving. We have a bias that we color in meaning. So anything we don't know, we make it up based on our own perception. So there is a lot of room for error, and all that wonderful, brilliant advice that we think we have is often wrong. So the second piece is asking people what they want and getting to know that picture of what they want with clarity. So what people wanted from their job 5 years ago and what people want from their job today is completely different. And we're afraid of asking for what they want because we're afraid of the answer, and we're afraid that we're not going to be able to deliver. We're afraid that we're going to have to be responsible now for something extra when we're already feeling burdened by all the other stuff that's happening. And we feel like if we ask them what they want and they tell us, they're going to run the show, they're going to have free reign, they're not going to respect me anymore. They're going to think they can just get everything they want because. And then I'm disempowered. Or somehow it's going to create a bigger engagement issue. But without that critical intel of what people want for themselves, we can't do anything different. Okay, so now I'm going to explain to you a little bit about choice theory, okay? Ready?
Ready.
And this is just to back up what I'm talking about here. So we have 5 basic needs. Those needs are survival, it's getting the paycheck, pay our stuff. That's not the only need we have. We have love and belonging, power, freedom, fun and learning. Okay. So during the pandemic, we said, okay, survival is not the only thing here. We have 4 other psychological needs And I want to get that from my job.
Mm-hmm.
And there are options here for me to get that from my job. So now this is something that I want. So we have these 5 basic needs, and we have a collection of images of what we want, what we believe will satisfy these 5 basic needs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You following me so far? So we have these wants. So this is what I'm saying we need to get acquainted with, is the pictures of what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Because now, based on what I want, my brain is giving me chemical signals called emotions that tell me to go towards what I want or away from what I don't want. Okay, so everything that the person wants is affecting the emotions that is impacting their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So the emotion is the signal that tells the person to behave, to go towards or away. So if you're presenting me a picture that aligns with what I want, I will have an emotion that pulls me towards it. Okay, going back to engagement. What's engagement? An emotional commitment to work or effort. And if I'm presented a picture of something that I don't want, I am again getting an emotional signal that tells me to move away.
Mm-hmm.
So the closer it is to what we want, the more we're pulled towards, and the further away it is from what we want, we're pulled away from.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you think about engagement as a scale from actively engaged to neutral,
Mm-hmm.
to engaged to actively disengaged, the more it's matching our picture, we're going towards high engagement. The more that it's not matching our picture, we're going towards lower engagement.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So do you see now how important it is to know what that picture is?
Mm-hmm.
Super important. If you want to bring up that engagement, you need to know what is the picture internally that's going to help them. And that picture has changed.
Mm-hmm.
So the strategy to getting to the picture hasn't changed, but the picture has changed. And you need that intel to know what to do next. Okay, so 1, put the business agenda aside long enough to have a human connection. 2, get intimately, like a really clear picture of what they want. So what's number 3? Could you guess, Kelsey Ann?
To align your direction with their direction.
Yes, yes. You get A+, 100 points, million points.
Yes.
Right? And that's what we mean by alignment. So often we talked about alignment. And we have this like, I'm seeking alignment, but what I want is I'm going to stay exactly the same. And I want all of my employees to align with me. Right? I'm seeking alignment. It's not how things work, unfortunately. It would be nice, right? It would be nice.
Yeah.
But when you know what the business wants, and when you know what you as a leader wants, and when you know what the employee wants, now I've got 3 pictures. And in those 3 pictures, there's similarities, things that you have in common. So what is common here? There are things that are not common, that are different.
Mm-hmm.
So there is an opportunity to negotiate differences. And it doesn't have to match 100%. It doesn't have to be yeah, this is the picture they want now. I have to scrap my picture and the picture of the business to match what
Mhm.
no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how can you take the picture that is going to be our mission that will encompass all three things: what the business want, what you want, and what the employee wants for themselves.
Mhm.
And the more you can include what the employee wants for themselves in that mission, the more they're going to receive that chemical signal that tells them to move, the more engagement you're going to have.
Mhm.
Thoughts there, Kelsey Ann?
It makes sense.
Yeah. So it takes slowing down, having a human connection, because no one will tell you what they want if they don't feel connected to you. They need to feel connected. They need to feel a sense of trust. You need to have a strong relationship
Yeah.
for them to feel comfortable and be transparent enough to tell you what they want.
Mhm.
And then once you know what they want, now you have the power to adjust the approach.
Mhm. Yeah, I think too, sometimes our advice monster comes to the forefront, right? And doesn't, not our listening monster, right? Or I don't know, the opposite of monsters, our listening friend. Um, to actually listen to hear, not just to respond. Because I think a lot of people, again, pushing that agenda, they're not really listening to the employee. They're just trying to pretend that they're listening.
And this is not like intentional. This is not like, oh, I'm a bad person, I'm trying not to listen.
Right.
Like, this is just the human urge. We all have that urge to want to say, oh my God, I have the answer. Let's stop talking. Let me just give you the answer so we can all move on. Like, that urge is within all of us.
Yeah.
So, like, this is human nature. And we need to disrupt that pattern.
Hmm.
And so everything that I've shared with you today, that's this 3-step process, simple steps, but it is hard to do because of our patterns, our programming, our beliefs, our
Yeah.
own perceptions. Some of us are ready to step into it right away. Some of us will start, will say, wow, this is fantastic, let me start. And this you're going to encounter your own resistance, other people's resistance. Ooh, this is different from the way that we used to do things. So it's going to be a little bit of a slower implementation. And some people will hear this, think it's a great idea, but I can't get over it. Like, I can't. Mm, mm.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it and fail, or I don't have time, or whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
Just can't really see how I'm going to do it within the environment that I'm in. Sometimes it feels like you are a victim to the environment and the culture and the way we've been working. And this is just not going to work here. And let me tell
Hmm.
you, we can take that information, the environment that you're in, and factor that in how you're going to do these 3 steps.
Hmm.
So, with that being said, if you want to know more about how to do these 3 steps, this is what you're going to get in my workshop that's happening mid-May. So that's starting May 15th. I am providing you with the opportunity to join me live for 5 days. It's 1 hour a day, bite size. You don't have to miss anything from your day. You don't have to book the day off or anything like that. All you need to do is schedule your lunch for that hour so you can show up with your lunch in hand. It works with your schedule because I know how much you're busy. And so I've considered that in planning out this event for you.
Hmm.
I'm saying it's Kelsey and no, this is the we.
It is a week.
So we made it super accessible for you to join me over the course of 5 days. We cover disengagement, how to identify disengagement before it becomes a problem. So as as it's starting to go down from actively engaged to just engaged to neutral, to be able to spot it right as things are starting to diminish. So you're not dealing with these big, hard situations. Number two, I'm going to give you a new way of assessing the situation that you're in. So my hope is that you're coming with a situation in mind. So either a present situation or a situation that has arisen, or a situation that you're predicting may come up. All right. So you're coming in with a situation. I'm going to be showing you how to assess this situation. There's an assessment tool, and then that will give you intel on what this situation is going to need. So what is the approach? How much time it's going to take to turn this around? And three, how much probability is there to turn this around? So sometimes we invest a lot of time into something, a situation that will not change. I want to save you some of that time. Sometimes we spend a lot of time trying to figure out what to do next because we just don't know what to do. Everything that we've tried is not working. And I just don't know what to do anymore. So I'll be able to give you that shift so that you know what approach is going to be effective here. And you can stop trying all the things and actually do something that's going to make a difference. And number three, you're going to learn my 3-step influence system so that you can set things up to have very effective conversations with employees when you're dealing with low performance or disengagement. All right. So I want to make sure that if you're going to have an uncomfortable conversation, we can switch it from hard and ineffective to something that is maybe uncomfortable, but super effective. And there are things that you can do even before having the conversation that paves the way to have that effectiveness. All right. So I want to equip you with all of this. May 15th to the 19th, people who have attended have won. So for some people, it's been a game changer in terms of how they see and they approach leadership. It's completely changed them from that management mindset to more of a leadership mindset. For some people, it has helped them see their situation where they felt stuck with an employee not knowing what to do. They were able to, as of day 2, start taking action and start taking the right action with this person and actually turn things around by the time the week was done. Those are the most satisfying feedback that I get from participants. Like, I'm so happy when somebody can say, hey, it's been awful for the past year, and finally we've had the breakthrough. Finally, we're on the same page. Finally, we're moving forward.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. For some people, it's been a change in how they're approaching leadership and they're setting up their relationships, their communication, their touch points, how they work with their team. And for others, it's been taking the material, start using it for themselves, and also teach the other leaders around them. And the people who get the most out of it is, one, using the material, showing up daily, putting it into practice, bringing their colleagues with them, bring your leadership team, bring your fellow managers, do it together as a collaborative experience. And they take advantage of me behind the scenes. So why we were late today doing this live is that Kelsey and I were going over my calendar and clearing things out so that I have time to support you behind the scenes. So you'll be able to direct message me and we can have a conversation about the specifics of what's happening for you and how you're going to tailor what you're learning inside the workshop, customize it, personalize it to your situation so we can deal with things like, I hear you, but here's what's going on in my environment. I just don't know how I'm going to make this work. and we can dig into those types of questions.
And I know the attendees last time that took advantage of that cleared calendar and, engaged with you last time, they got the results that they got, and the deepening and the practice that they were able to, like, their return on investment was bananas.
Yeah, exactly. And so my goal is to make sure to get you as many wins as possible in 5 days. In 5 days or less, I want you to be crushing it.
Yeah.
And I've had so far about more than 500 people attend this workshop. The amount of wins is mind blowing, which is why I keep doing this workshop, because it's so satisfying to have this much impact, to share something that people can take back to the workplace, implement it, and make a change.
Yeah.
And so I'm not just, impacting one leader, the one leader that came, I'm impacting other leaders that are having these materials shared with, and all of the employees that are benefiting from this shift. And they're small shifts.
Yeah. Those ripples, right?
Exactly. And I've seen, new managers, people just stepping into leadership positions, really take advantage of this and really set themselves up. And I've seen very seasoned managers tell me, this is like therapy. Like, what a great reset. And being able to take all the things that I do well and do them better.
Yeah.
And so during the week, we're going to flip some of these, we're going to touch on some of those leadership knowledge and concepts that you already know, and we're going to flip them on their head, and we're going to explore them and dissect them. And we're going to have a new way of moving forward with our leadership approach. So I'm excited. I'm talking about it. I'm like, can we start tomorrow? So it's starting on May 15th. We have a limited number of seats. We do have a high volume of people that register, and we already are about halfway registered right now, and we have 1.5 weeks to go. All right, so it's time to save your seat now. It doesn't cost you anything. Yeah. Anything you want to add, Kelsey-Ann, before we close out?
The link is in the comments, so if anybody does want to register, the link is there. And I hope to see you inside the workshop, because I've done it with Melissa now a few times, and every time I get, and I know there's been other leaders that have returned, and the conversations are different, the scenarios are different. Everybody always gets something else and something different from attending again.
Absolutely. Well, this was wonderful. I had lots of fun. I hope that you took away some important nuggets today, and are able to kind of bring that into your world to rethink a little bit and use it. All right. So I will see you all in a couple of weeks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.